Hola a todos. Today we're going to talk about the path to proficiency. This is a way that you're going to be graded. You will be getting a progress monitor that shows how these different proficiency levels translate into what your grade will be. And you'll also be getting another rubric that will be used for the different modes of communication that are listed and that we've been talking about for the past 2 days, and how all that will end up playing together for your grade for this class. So the question that you have on your note sheet on path to proficiency that you should have glued into your ISN, it says, what does proficient mean, and what does this mean for Spanish class? So I'm going to give you probably the next 30 seconds to think about that and write down what you think. So being proficient means that you're able to communicate effectively with someone else, and you're also able to get your point across. Now, the different levels have to do with how well you're able to do that. And what does this mean for Spanish class? Well, you have to make it to a certain proficiency level while you're in class. So under this box, you should have your own opinion, and then you should have written down what I just told you. So I should see 2 different answers under here. Well, actually, I should see 4 different answers because there's 2 questions. So it says on here that the proficiency levels are novice, intermediate, and advanced. We're going to really be focusing on novice because that's where you are now and where you will be by the end of the year, and maybe sometimes you will hit intermediate. So novice is when you're able to communicate on highly predictable topics that you've already covered that pertain directly to you. Intermediate would be you're starting to create your own type of things or ideas with the language about familiar topics. And then advanced is that you're starting to talk about other things like academic things and solve problems in Spanish. Advanced is really high level, as you will see in the videos that you're going to watch later. But we're basically going to focus on novice. So the sub-levels that we've created, or that ACTFL, the American Council of Foreign Language Teaching, has created, are low, mid, and high. So we have novice low, which means you are kind of just hitting that level. A novice mid would be that you're able to keep up your language at that level, which we're going to talk about what it means to be at that level in just a minute. And then if you're at novice high or intermediate high or anything like that, you're able to completely stay at that level, and sometimes you hit a higher level on occasion. So if you think about it in terms of a continuum, which a continuum could be in terms of grade scales as well, like if you think of how a 90 is an A, but 100 is also an A. So if you think about low being a 90 and high being 100, it kind of starts to make more sense. So if you are still confused about what low, mid, and high means, we're going to give you some examples in just a minute, and also I'm going to tell you exactly what it means to be low and what it means to be mid and what it means to be high. So let's move on. So it says that you should circle the level you should be hitting by the end of the year. So the level that you are going to be hitting by the end of the year should be novice high. You may end up hitting intermediate low every now and then, but novice high is what we're aiming towards. So our vision for the future would end up being intermediate low. So what I want you to do in these arrows at the bottom, the first arrow on the top left that has nothing in it, it says label the levels that you should be traveling through this class. Take notes on the characteristics of each category. I'm going to talk about each of these levels. So for the first arrow, you need to have novice low at the top. Make sure you leave enough room because we're going to talk about what it means to be novice low, and also you're going to give an example of what that looks like. So novice low is you're really at word level things. Like you're only able to say words, maybe some phrases. So if someone asks you a question, you answer in just straight up words. So in English, that might sound like today, bad, if someone asks you how your day is today. So the next level and the next arrow would be novice mid 1. This is more of, you're able to talk about words and phrases, and you're able to add a little bit more detail, but not a lot. So you would be able to say something like, today is bad, food no good, I do not like the food, if somebody asked you how your day is today at school. So when you jump from novice mid 1 to novice mid 2, you're adding more details to that. So that's what novice mid 2 is. You're adding more details. And for example, I would probably be at maybe a novice mid 1 French level learner right now, because I can say a lot of phrases, but if somebody were to ask me something, I probably would not know how to say the answer all the time, but maybe if it was very basic questions, I would be able to answer. So basically all you're doing with novice mid 2 is you're adding more details to your answers, but you may or may not be able to stay at that level. Novice high, you're able to sustain at that level, and sometimes you hit a higher level. So novice high would be the next box. And this is the box that you are expected to be at by the end of the year. So you're able to ask questions, you're able to add more to the conversation, and you do have to force questioning back to the other person, and it's not very natural for you. Then, a vision for our future, which would be the last arrow. So next year, we're going to look at what being intermediate low means, and that means that you are able to do all the things that intermediate high can do, except you're all the time able to hit at intermediate low. It's not just every now and then. So that makes you intermediate low if you're able to stay at that level. So that means you're asking questions naturally, you're really flowing with the conversation. But novice high really means that you're able to do Spanish, if that makes any sense. So for all of these, you need to add an example of what that may look like in English. And then afterwards, later on, I'm asking you to reflect on these different proficiency levels. So you need to be able to reflect on what novice low means, what novice mid 1 looks like, what novice mid 2 looks like, what novice high looks like, and what intermediate low looks like. We've separated novice mid 1 or novice mid into two categories as novice mid 1 and novice mid 2 because it's such a huge kind of expectation to be novice mid. But basically novice mid 1 to novice mid 2 is you're able to add more and more and more details to your answers to a conversation. All right, and I guess that's it. Pues adios.